I'm Commissioner Raquel Regalado, and thank you for spending your lunch break with us. As a former school board member, I love ed, and there's so many great things about our government that we want to educate you about before it's a problem. So this is a series where we deep dive into all things Miami-Dade County, bring along our partners, and share some knowledge and some opportunities with you.
So for many of you, you know that Miami-Dade County Solid Waste is a Department of Solid Waste, and the work that we do. You see the garbage can that comes out, but we're more than just a department that collects garbage. We are essential public services that protect our public health. We support our environment stewardship, and we also help keep our communities clean, safe, and resilient. Every day, our team of staff, they actually are. Provide one of the largest government operated solid waste systems in the region. We serve hundreds of thousands of homes to support our businesses with garbage and recycling services. We also operate disposal and transfer facilities. We provide enforcement programs. We respond to illegal dumping, protect neighborhoods from litter, all of these things and ensure that waste is handled responsibly from the curb to its final destination. And many people don't realize all of those other things that we do. Solid waste is one of those departments that touch every resident, every business, every neighborhood, and every visitor. It's one of those services that people may not think about every day, but life would be almost impossible or immediately impacted if the system just stopped working. So it's critical. A reliable solid waste system is fundamental to our quality of life. It keeps our neighborhoods clean, it protects our waterways, it supports the overall appearance and livability of our communities. And when residents place garbage and recycling yard waste, bulky waste at the curb, they're relying on our system. That system must work every day in every community, regardless of the weather, regardless if there's a holiday, emergency, growth, or even rising costs. That's what we do. We're here. We directly connect to the public safety. We directly connect to our communities, attracting investment and supporting the neighborhoods that we preserve to ensure that Miami-Dade County stays a beautiful place for each and every one of us. But when we talk about turning waste into a resource, our work is evolving from simply managing waste to recovering the value of those materials. We're focused on building a more sustainable and circular system where waste is not viewed only as something that discard, but as something that can be reused, recycled, repurposed. Through recycling, through waste by rail, through technology, through education, through the innovative pilots that we've done, and long term planning. We're looking at ways to reduce landfill dependency and maximize the value of materials that enter into our waste stream. Yard waste is more than just waste. It can be mulch, it can be a soil enhancement product. Recyclables can return to the manufacturing stream as a new product. Food waste and organic materials can support future composting or renewable energy or opportunities. Even materials that cannot be recycled may have future value through modern waste to energy or other advanced technology. The goal is to move from disposal mindset to a resource management mindset. This is possible with the help of our residents. And when our residents take a stake in being a participant in helping us by recycling correctly, placing the right materials in the right cart, avoiding contamination, recycling bins, avoiding contamination, properly disposing of their chemicals, and reporting illegal dumping. They help reduce our costs, they improve the safety, and they protect the environment. Contamination and recycling is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing at our system. And when non-recyclable materials are placed in the recycling cart, it can damage our equipment, increase our processing costs, and cause otherwise recyclable materials to be rejected. But recycling works when we recycle right. And each one of our residents has an individual action to affect the entire county system. And so Nick, our resiliency division director, is going to walk us through how turning waste into a resource can be the evolution for how we do this thing. It actually can preserve this system and protect our system for futures to come. Nick?
Thank you, Director. I appreciate that. So, like Director Daniel said, today we're going to be going over how we can really reimagine waste instead of thinking about it as something that just goes away. which, believe it or not, there's no such place as away. We've looked, and solid waste would know best where our waste goes. It can go to the landfill or a transfer station, but it goes somewhere. And today, instead of thinking about just putting it away in a landfill where it might not serve the best purpose, we're going to talk about how we can use it to its fullest extent as a resource. First, we're going to talk about why we need to do that. And then we'll talk about how the costs, the change that can come from that. And then, of course, the opportunities that we can reap when we think about waste as a resource. And then a call to action to everyone viewing. So, first, it's really important for us to talk about why this matters to Miami Dade. Recycling isn't just providing our residents with a blue recycling cart and then instructing our residents to put recyclable items in that cart where they then get serviced. Recycling can help us with preserving the county's revenues. It helps us reduce our landfill waste. It helps us reach county sustainability goals, and then, of course, it can help the recycling market. So let's dive into each one of those a little bit more. So, recyclables, once they're collected, they do end up going to valuable end markets. So, cardboard, aluminum, steel cans, plastics, even, they're all graded once they've been separated. And depending on how clean, empty, and dry they are, they will then go to end markets for them to be reprocessed. And the revenues that are generated from our curbside recycling program helps pay for the curbside recycling program operations. It helps pay for the processing costs. So that's why it's so critical that we're able to really get as clean of a stream as possible. Like the director was mentioning, we want to try to keep contamination as low as possible. And there aren't a lot of collection operations where the collection of the material actually helps pay for it. Recycling is one of those few examples. So when you put the proper materials in that cart, you're helping pay for that service, which is always great. Recycling also keeps recyclable items out of the landfill. Our landfills they have a finite capacity. You can only fit so much waste in a landfill. And our landfills here in Miami-Dade County are losing space. And every ton that's recycled helps preserve our landfill space just a little bit more. So when you throw that can into a recycling bin instead of your green garbage cart, don't think about how you're just helping the county preserve costs for the recycling program. Think about how there's going to be one less fewer can in the landfill, and that you're doing what you can to help preserve our landfill space and keep providing the garbage services that we provide. And then, of course, the more effectively recycle, the stronger the end markets become. So, a lot of people think that when something is recycled, it might just be downcycled, meaning that it's turned into something that has less value. But aluminum cans, for example, those can be from the time that it enters into your blue recycling cart to the time that it's on a store shelf. That can just be 50 days. And when you are purchasing things in aluminum cans, for example, or just things made out of recycled material, you're showing the recycling end markets that you as an individual value recycling. And that really adds meaning to the recycling program. So now that we've talked about why this matters, let's talk about the whole process from when you drink that soda or when you finish using that cardboard box to the point where it's turned into a new item. So the first mile is the point of collection. That's going to be your blue cart. Like the director mentioned, we service hundreds of thousands of households for our general services, but for recycling services, we service more than 360,000 households. Those are the same households that get garbage collection services from the county, but it also includes a number of municipalities that have what are called interlocal agreements with the county. So that way we provide recycling services to them. So those 360,000 plus households get a blue recycling cart. Generally, most of them are going to be serviced every other week, with a couple exceptions, mostly City of Miami Beach and City of South Miami. When you put an item in that recycling cart, it's then going to be serviced across three different recycling zones. The northern part is going to be one zone, the central part will be another zone, and then the southern part of the county will be a third zone. And there are three different haulers for each zone. Once the materials are collected, they will then be processed at what's called a material recovery facility, or a MRF. A MRF is just a recycling processing facility where all of those materials are going to be sorted based on the material type. A lot of people tend to forget that because Miami-Dade County offers a single stream recycling program, which means all recyclables go into one cart, some people don't realize that those materials are sorted somewhere. So the MRF is where those materials are then sorted. And from there, they are sent to end markets, which are going to be buyers of materials, plastics, aluminum, cardboard, and paper. And there's been a lot of news in the recent years about recycling markets and where recyclables actually go. And the benefit of our recycling program is that our contract with Armorf states that we need to know where the recyclables are going and they need to provide reports on that. So we know where our recyclables are going. For example, we know for a fact that a plastic bottle or a plastic yogurt cup in Miami Dade County is not going to be shipped outside of the United States or Canada. All plastics are kept here in North America. And that helps people, when people learn about that, that helps them have confidence that it's not being improperly disposed of, like other municipalities outside of the state may have been doing or has been reported in the news in the past few years. Now, we can have this process, and this process can be as robust and as strong as I mentioned, but we need to make sure that we have quality materials. So, the cost of contamination. In 2020, when we did a contamination study, we found that almost 50%, nearly half of all materials in the blue cart, didn't belong there. They were either not clean, empty, or dry, but were recyclable, or they simply were not recyclable materials. Now, when we did our last contamination study, our contamination rate fell to 38.8%. And that's largely due to the robust outreach and education programs that we have ongoing, where we educate students in the Miami Dade County Public Schools. We educate HOAs, faith based organizations. Our code enforcement officers do engagement with residents to make sure that they're properly doing and putting things in the recycling cart that belongs. And that really helps us reach our goal. But 38% is still close to 40%. And there's a lot of opportunities for improvement there. So we're hoping that this ongoing contamination study that we're doing this May, it's actually wrapping up this week, will show that we continue to drive down our contamination rate. Now, if you're curious as to how a contamination study works, we actually pull recycling trucks from all three of the zones that we were just discussing, and we have them dump their materials, and people will then sort the materials. Plastic bottles go in one area, aluminum goes in another, cardboard in another, etc., etc. And we'll even identify which materials don't belong. So, how often people are putting batteries in the cart, how often people are putting um, plastic bags. And that helps us modify our education. And then we share this information at tabling events as well and uh, electronically through our social media program. So, before we move on, I just want you all to think for a second about what the most improperly disposed of item is in our blue recycling cart. What's considered the most contaminated item? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. And so you might think that it's plastic bag. And in that event, you would be mostly correct. But when we say that we don't accept plastic bags in our recycling program, people generally tend to think that that just means loose plastic bags, so plastic bags that you might get from a grocery store, but it truly means all plastic bags. So, for example, bagged materials. If you're putting your aluminum cans, your cardboard, your paper, your plastics in a bag, tying that bag, and then putting that in your blue cart, that would be considered contamination. Our material recycling facility processor, they do not have a bag breaker. So, when things are disposed of in a plastic bag, that means that all of that material is going to be considered contamination. And the contamination study is actually done by weight. So, the most commonly contaminated item in our recycling program is going to be bagged materials. So, we kindly ask that you do not dispose of your recyclables in a plastic bag and then put it in your cart. Recyclables should always be kept clean, empty, dry, and loose. Keep your recyclables loose in your cart. Now, if you really want to make sure that you're keeping your kitchen clean and organized and you have issues with not having your recyclables in a plastic bag, what we kindly ask you do is put all your recyclables in a plastic bag. And then when you go to dispose of them, make sure to dump the plastic bag into the blue cart. Empty all of the contents of that plastic bag into the blue cart. So that way your recyclables are loose. And then take that empty bag and dispose of it in the green cart or reuse it. There should never be a plastic bag or bag materials being put into a blue cart. And so now I'm going to show you a brief video. It's about a minute long. We've talked about the importance of contamination and making sure that materials are being recycled. And we've talked about the value that recycling has to Miami-Dade County. But sometimes I hear from people that say, well, is it actually being recycled? A lot of work goes into making sure that people are putting the right materials in the blue recycling cart. But how can we as residents have confidence that it's actually going where it's going? And so this is a video here that shows where the material recycling facility is. It's managed by WM. They actually just recently opened a new facility that we are now using. They sort the materials both using advanced technology, but also by using staff. And this new facility replaces their older facility that was operational since 2008. And so we've been partnering with WM as our recycling processor since then. So this is just a more advanced way that materials can be more effectively and efficiently sorted. What's really interesting is you can see just how much cardboard is moving through these facilities. Cardboard is the most material that's received. And so whenever you get those packages, we really kindly request that you break those cardboard boxes down and then put them in your blue cart so they can be turned into cardboard again or paper or other materials. And then, of course, we mentioned here cafecito cups are not recyclable. And then with bottle caps, that's a big question that people have. Do I put the bottle cap in separately? Do I keep it attached to the bottle before putting it in the cart, or do I just leave it out entirely? You can either reattach it to the bottle or you can just leave it completely off. The video ends here, but you can clearly see that when the bottle caps are not attached to a bottle, that they just end up as residue and fall through the screen. So this video is actually a little bit longer. It can be accessed on our social media page, like on Instagram at Miami-Dade Solid Waste, and you'll be able to get a full idea as to how the whole MRF operates. This was just a little teaser for everybody. So we've talked about the importance of recycling. We've talked about how we're educating people. We've talked about the process of recycling from blue carts to being collected to then being processed. And now let's talk about what the department is doing to help drive additional change. What steps are we taking to help bring that 38% contamination rate down? So, one thing that we hear from the community all of the time is the importance of educating our residents, which we do on a daily basis. But the residents that are arguably the most important to educate are our students, the children of Miami-Dade County. So we work very, very closely with Miami-Dade County Public School District, and we visit at least weekly to educate different classes and different schools on how to recycle right and the importance of recycling right and how recycling helps promote waste diversion goals and prolongs the life of our landfill. Now, it's important that students know how to recycle and that the children of Miami-Dade County know how to recycle, not only because they're the future, but because the people that are best at educating the older adults are students. Students will learn that a plastic bottle should be recycled or a can should be recycled or a, a very lightly soiled pizza box or a clean yogurt cup can be recycled. And they'll take that knowledge home and they'll tell their parents, Mom or Dad, did you know that this can be recycled? Or they'll see something improperly put into the recycling cart and they'll make sure to educate their parents as well. So that's one avenue that we're pursuing. Another avenue is that we're partnering with innovative technologies, like the director mentioned earlier in this webinar. We're working with a company called Scrapp. And what they do is they allow residents who download the app to scan an item's barcode, and then it will immediately inform the resident as to whether or not that item can be recycled. And if not, how to properly dispose of that item. And residents are also able to use the app to set up bin date reminders. So if residents sometimes forget what day their recycling cart should be put out, they'll be able to use the app and they'll be able to get bin day reminders for recycling services and for garbage services. And then we're also working on specialty recycling programs. So, for example, the Department of Solid Waste Management and certain departments within the county works with an organization called Sneaker Impact, where we actually collect sneakers from department employees and they get recycled through Sneaker Impact. And they're actually graded based on whether or not they can be reused. And if they can be, they are provided to micro businesses in other countries to help those micro businesses grow and making sure that those shoes can be used by those that may need them. And for the shoes that can't be reused, they end up getting recycled and repurposed into new material, potentially new shoes, flooring material, and other materials. And this is particularly beneficial because it's allowing the department to explore the innovative different types of technologies that are being developed right here in Miami-Dade County to address a very difficult material to recycle. And then the county has also received a recent grant for $825,000 to help us broaden our ability to message to our residents on what can and can't be recycled. So it will be used to help residents learn about all of the new items that can be accepted in the recycling program, like yogurt cups and butter tubs and iced coffee cups, for example. But it will also help us educate the residents that have the hardest time with recycling. So those that might be wanting to recycle but might not be fully aware of what materials can be recycled, they're actually going to help us message to those residents more directly. And so we've already talked about what Scrap does, but I wanted to give everybody an opportunity. If they'd like, I can pause here for 20 seconds and just give you the opportunity to scan this QR code. And we're actually, while you all are potentially getting out your phones to scan the QR code, I wanted to let everybody know that we're also partnering with other municipalities that aren't in our service area to make sure that they can also use this app. So, for example, City of Miami is able to use this app as well. So that way, residents all across Miami-Dade are able to use the services in Scrap. And because this is a pilot, this service came at no cost to the county and no cost to the Department of Solid Waste. And so if you're in a municipality and you don't yet have your bin day reminders set up when you go into Scrap, we are working with our municipal partners to get that feature added soon. But in the meantime, you will be able to scan any item and it will show you whether or not that item is recyclable within your municipality. That feature is active today. So, we've gone along this recycling journey, and now it's time to discuss the opportunity ahead. So, as you've hopefully learned, every step across this way, it creates value. And we have a system that works. You all got to see a short snippet of the video and to learn how it works today and how we're actively improving upon that system. And as we improve, we're able to reduce contamination. And when we reduce contamination, we're able to have higher valued recyclables, which will help reduce operational costs. But for us to do that, it requires a collaborative effort. So, how can you help treat waste as a resource? So, we want each and every one of you to be a champion for contamination reduction. So perhaps before this webinar, you were putting all of your recyclables in a bag and then placing that bag in the blue cart. We kindly ask for you to be a champion of contamination reduction and to now recycle your materials loosely. Make sure you're not putting any plastic bags in the blue cart, even if they're bagged. And then support expansion of education and engagement efforts. Tell your neighbors, your family members, your friends about what you learned today and how recycling happens in Miami-Dade County and how it helps us ensure that we can continue to provide the waste services that we provide just as effectively today, tomorrow, and then align resources to scale recycling system performance. When you're recycling clean, empty, and dry materials, you're helping make sure that our recycling program works as effectively as possible and making sure that it's an effective system. And together, we can continue to turn more waste into measurable value for Miami-Dade County. And so, with that, we'll open it up to any questions. We'll hand it back to Alejandro to help facilitate.
Hello, if you have any questions,
Well, I
please
did
feel free
want
to
to.
use the Q&A section. Each of you should have access to the question and answer.
Alejandro, I had some closing comments that I wanted to mention.
Please do.
So first of all, I wanted to thank Nick for that very good presentation. There's a lot of great information that was shared today, and I'm hopeful that all of the participants and all that will watch this video will learn something about how they can take action to help our system. Miami-Dade County is growing, and with all of the growth that comes with more waste, more demand, and greater pressures on our infrastructure and our system. But the decisions that we make today will determine how well we manage our waste for future generations to come. But together we can protect our system, we can preserve our environment, reduce the waste, recover resources, and ensure that Miami-Dade County remains a clean and resilient community for generations to come. So we're proud to serve Miami-Dade County, but we cannot do this work alone. And so we all have a work to play. So I'm hopeful that there's something that, each person learned today that would help them to take action on how they can help to make their waste become part of a resource. Thank you.